Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming to our talk on collaborating around digital tabletops, children's physical strategies in India, the UK, and Finland. My name is Izdihar, and I'm joined here by the beautiful Calkin.
Hello, everyone.
So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started.
Let's get started. And this work has been a joint collaboration, and it's been a long journey. You will see, we're going to give you an overview of this journey. But we had plenty of support and collaborative forces that came into play in 3 different countries. We have with us the wonderful Mark Perry writing here. We have Kenton O'Hara, Abhijit, Karnik, Kaisa Pihlainen from Finland over there, helping me a lot with all the work that we had to do. Mark Marshall at Bristol with us, Swathi, Sanjay, Gupta from India, as well as Sriram Subramanian from Bristol at the time. So
Yes.
this was a truly collaborative work, and it has been published at the SEM Transactions on Computer-Human Interaction last year. So welcome to this journey.
Okay, so this journey started in 2012. I still remember it when I flew to Finland on that cold, snowy day to run the study with Calkin. Those are our children. They're about 1 year old, and yes, they are our children. That's Abrar and that's Nolan. So what happens in 2018, Calkin?
Oh yes, fast forward 6 years about, children multiplied and they grew. So in here we have bigger families now, we have bigger children as well. So this journey started some time ago and has carried out together with our lives and our families, and finally it has come to one maturity. So tell us, Isi, what is all this about?
Okay, it's simple. It is about understanding how children collaborate around digital technologies in the UK, India, and Finland. So why is it so important to understand about this? The current literature is predominantly Western-based. So it is important for us to understand as the cost of technology decreases, what does it look like when we deploy technologies in multiple countries using the same technology, using the same task? What kind of collaboration strategies can we see? Is it hindering or enhancing the collaboration? Or what are the similarities or differences? And using these insights, we are able to understand, and hopefully, as technologists, are able to design better tools, techniques, and technology for the participants. So Calkin, we've been globe-trotting around the world, and was it all worth it?
Well, actually, yes, it has been quite a movement around. And actually our results showed that it has been quite worthy. So we have observed in all of these deployments of technologies and techniques and tasks in 3 different countries, we have observed a bunch of different strategies that children use to collaborate around this amazing technology. And we have summarized these strategies within 3 dimensions. We have the dynamic spatial positioning that occurs around the tabletop. We have the simultaneous object movement that occurs in the tabletop on it as the children move together the digital objects that are on the table. And we have the physical contact which occurred above this tabletop. So we observed all of these strategies, and perhaps Isik, you can tell us how can we map all of this to make a better sense of it?
Sure. So if we map it between these 3 countries, so on the tabletop, moving the same object together, around, positioning themselves around the tabletop, and above, physical contact, which means they're grabbing, hitting, pulling, pushing each other's hands, and it's got nothing to do, no wrestling on that part. No. So if we were to map it, you can see India has the highest of all 3 areas, in the sense that have the highest physical contact, a lot of touching, hitting, grabbing, pulling, a lot of moving around the tabletop within a short space of time, and also a lot of touching the same objects together, whether it's 2 children, 3, 4, and sometimes the whole group touching it at the same time. Whereas in the UK, it's more on the static positioning, whereas the most interesting part is them standing up, tilting their body, and then sit down back again. Super interesting. And then they also demonstrated some physical contact and simultaneous object movement.
That is right.
Whereas in Finland, it's kind of in the middle of India and the UK. They did demonstrate some spatial positioning, but not as much as in India, but not as a static positioning in the UK. They also showed some physical contact and simultaneous object movement. And Calkin, I believe that we have some videos to show the audience today.
Of course, because of course we have to ground what we are trying to tell you here. So we're going to show you some brief instances of what is it that we mean by each one of these strategies. And for example, in India, easy.
So this is about simultaneous object movement. As you can see, children moving the same object together, which is peculiar because you only need one person with one finger or the most two fingers to move the same objects together. But no, there has to be 2 or 3 or 4, and at one point the whole group wanted to contribute. And in our observation, we speculated that it's because they wanted to show consensus of understanding, group participation, helping each other, and also to achieve the group's task.
That's correct. And tell us, Izzy, what happened in the UK?
Right, this is the British part of it. So in the UK, you can see the student standing up, kind of like touching the object, making a spatial connection between the objects or the connections, and then tilting his body, and then stood back up again, and then sat down. Whereas in India, you will see very dynamic movements. So children moving from one position to the other, to another, within a short space of time. And in our observation, we noticed that this is due to them positioning themselves to show intent, to create awareness of what the task, to help one another, and also to actually achieve group cohesiveness and consensus in order to achieve the group's task. And what about physical contact in Finland, Calkin?
Well, we know that in Finland, they are a quiet bunch. But when they are interacting with the tabletop, we observe that the kids actually did have physical contact to certain extents. And what we noticed, for example, right here, in this particular instance, there were 3 children interacting with the tabletop. And we noticed how they actually physically push the other one away in an attempt to stop it from disturbing the general layout that the group has already agreed to maintain. So it was trying, this particular case, they were trying to reinforce the entire group decision by avoiding others to get off track of the task. And we actually observed this more than once, and not only in Finland, but also in other of the countries that are in there. Also, another thing that we observe with this is that they try to also help each other out, making sense of what is it that they needed to do. It's like, no, it's not that we needed to do. This is the other thing that we have to do now. And so they kind of take that part of interactive, is an orchestration on what is it that we need to do here, and demonstrated that cohesion and that consensus that the group has taken towards achieving the particular action.
And also with physical contact, we notice as it is more intense in India, it does not hinder collaboration. In fact, it is part of their strategies to keep on moving forward as they achieve the task.
Yes, it might seem quite messy that everybody, in India in particular, are touching all the time together, all of the things at the same time, trying to help each other, desperately saying, okay, I also agree with you, moving this to this point to there.
Right.
And they actually make sense. That's their way of collaborating. But how did we do this in all of these countries, Izzy?
Okay, so we deployed the frustrated total internal reflection tabletop in all the 3 countries. So we actually custom built each of them locally, and they all have similar dimensions. As for the task,
we deployed ecologically appropriated topic taken from the curriculum of each one of these countries in collaboration with the local teachers and the curriculum and subjects that they were going to impart anyways to the students. In India, there was the photosynthesis topic, in the UK, energy, and in Finland, sustainable energy. The task deployed as such was, the idea was to create a spider diagram or a concept map of all these different concepts that were on the tabletop. And we have the idea to see how groups actually collaborate. So the group were in some instances, self-formed between 2 and 6 kids, depending on the particular arrangement of that particular school. And in some instances, the teachers choose how to accommodate the kids. But in any case, all of the kids that participated in one group knew each other. Regarding the task and the technique that we use, let's see if we can go back to that slide.
Right.
There we go.
There we are.
I'm going to very briefly show you the video of what they could do. We, of course, use direct touch. The kids could manipulate the objects on the digital table by moving, dragging and dropping, resizing, shrinking, by creating links to deploy their concept maps. If they consider that some of these links were not correct, then they could just erase those links as they create them and recreate them somewhere else if they consider that was the better way to represent that particular concept. So these are basically the layout that we have put forward.
Correct. So in terms of what grounded the work, so we not just only look at literature from the digital tabletop, so we had to extend our understanding into looking at peer integration, into looking at small group learning, into tabletops in classroom, into pedagogies, into how culture affects particular relationship, into text mapping and concept mapping. So it's a very vast and rich context of literature that actually grounded our work in order to make this paper a truly worthwhile and also remarkable piece of work. So Calkin, does it actually benefit? How does it actually benefit the community here?
Yes, probably the big question that everybody's asking. Why would I go to different countries to see what else that kids do around the tabletop and how do we do? Well, it does actually benefit. I mean, we have demonstrating certain strategies that the kids took in order to collaborate around the tabletops, and we have extracted from all of these analyses 3 different perspectives in which we can categorize all of these that we observe. The first one is, of course, what we already mentioned to you, the physical strategies I mentioned, in which there are the collaboration around the tabletop with the spatial positioning, and of course a selfie in the middle of the presentation. This is fantastic. We also have within this physical strategy dimension, as you know, the collaboration that happens on the tabletop as well as the collaboration that happens above the tabletop. Now, why is this important from the perspective of a technology designer, of an educator, or a researcher? For example, if we want to enhance this type of collaboration, how will we create a tabletop? In which shape it will be better to foster this type of collaborative work? We use a square tabletop, but perhaps a round tabletop could offer better fostering of this type of collaborative techniques. Another aspect or perspective that we want to put forward is that of proximity and space. We notice that social proximity varies a lot, and that is very much interrelated with the cultural aspects that we're going to mention as well. So social proximity, some participants feel very much comfortable to collaborate at a very close distance of each other. However, some others prefer to be a little bit more apart. And that's the way that they feel comfortable, and that's the way that they can actually achieve the task in a better cohesive way. So this is something very important that we have to take into consideration when we design interactive techniques. There are techniques that can enhance better close proximity for collaboration, and others that better enhance that distance. So taking that into account is very important when we create this type of application. Surely.
In multiple countries.
Yes. Culture. Culture. Then we have to the connotation of proxemics and that of personal space. Oh, this is my space, easy. I don't want you too close. No, but of course I want her very close because we have been working together for a long time. So this concept of personal space is very important. And we noticed that the concept varied between the different countries that we were in there, as we are aware of the different studies in cultural and deployment of technologies. So that is very, very important, as well as navigation on space and orientation. That's another thing that we notice. That's why many kids sometimes were in this position and sometimes were in the other position instead of continuing on the same space where they started with. So it's definitely of value from the perspective of the technology designer, the educator, and the multinational researcher to take these aspects into account when deploying this type of technology multi-country. So what are the conclusions that we can get on this, Izzy?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our talk. So what can we learn? So when children collaborate around multi-touch digital tabletop, there are three main findings: dynamic spatial positioning, simultaneous object movement, and physical contact. So with that, we would like to thank you for coming and listening to our talk. It's been truly a pleasure to be duetting with the beautiful Calkin, and I think it is time for us to party now. Thank you.
Don't go away, Izzy. Please, question answering.
Thank you. A very interesting way to present
Thank you.
and make it slightly fun. So, do you have some questions here?
I'm Leila from the University of Waterloo. So this was an interesting work, and you found like diverse behavior in the countries that you studied. So my question is, did you expect that, and how did you pick those three countries?
You go for it, Izzy.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so did you say that were we expecting those
Well, we're
kind
expecting
of
to see the things that we saw.
No,
Yeah.
we did not, because no matter how much literature we read, we had an idea, but when we deployed it in the real world setting, it completely threw off
Yes.
what we found.
Although we did find things that were in correlation with the literature. For example, that of
Closeness.
yes, and the closeness
Proximity.
and the touch, the physical contact that has been also observed already in the UK, but that hasn't really been observed in other places. Now, how do we pick these three interesting countries, Izzy?
Okay, so UK and Finland, they are based on the Western culture, so they have
Geographically,
Thank you.
There you
They
go.
are in the same culture and dominance. But in terms of India, though it is part in Asia, it is still stems from the Commonwealth. So it
Yes.
has roots in the British system. And also because predominantly a lot of the literature are based on the Western culture. So we wanted to have a look what it would be like to actually deploy the tabletop in other parts of the world as the cost of technology decreases.
Yes.
It's not just going to be in the Western
Yes.
world. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. The jet.
Hi, great talk. My name is Usama Mintatla from the University of Bristol.
Big group. Are you from the big group?
Yeah, big
Yeah, we were from the big group too.
I only joined recently, so we didn't get a chance to meet.
Hello.
Hi. So, fantastic talk. I'm just curious.
Thank
So you
you.
mentioned that you looked at different number of groups of children,
Yes.
2, 6, 4.
Yes, that's correct.
Were the behaviors consistent as a function of the number? Did you look at this kind of data?
Yes,
What kind of-
surprisingly, yes, the behaviors were consistent. What we observed, though, is that the consistency was per country, right? For example, if there were 2 kids in the United Kingdom, their behavior for special displacement was the same if there were only 2 kids or if there were 4 kids. If there were 6 kids in India, it doesn't matter, they move around, the same as if there were only 2 kids in the table. So the behavior was consistent within countries, just as all of the other things that we observed in there. They were consistent within country that depending on the culture. But the size of the group, we didn't notice that so strongly impacted the results
because
of the
I think
analysis.
if
no.
you remember, the technology is the same, the tasks were the same. The only thing that varied was the topic, and that is based on the consultation with the teachers, what kind of topic they are learning in school. So, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
you.
Let's thank them again for an interesting talk.